Good morning. Welcome to AM Prime here on the content capital WESN. I'm Leanne Jones. It's already the second month of 2023, but I, for one, am just so happy that January and its 5 Mondays is over. Let's take a look at the Newsday newspaper headlines. Former NIPOL Coolman accused on $1 million payout. It's not about the money. PM concerned over $20 million compensation, and opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar wants Attorney General fired. And also on the front page, Panwoman of Tropical Angel Harps plays during the preliminary judging of the Panorama competition in Chaguanas on Monday night. And in sport, Red Force in control as TNT dismisses Volcanoes for 243 on day one of the championship, the New Year Championship. It's Wellness Wednesdays here on AM Prime. So we have a quick tip to open up the show for you. At the height of the pandemic, Michelle Obama was quoted as saying, "We need to do a better job of putting ourselves higher up on our own to-do list." Now, I know some of us may have gotten quite good at prioritizing ourselves and our mental health. But if you are one of those who are still struggling with making yourself a priority on a daily basis, here's a little reminder. This week, this month, take some time for yourself. Focus on making that time, carve out a little bit of time during your day to start back exercising if that's your goal for the new year, to read that book that you've been meaning to start reading, or maybe buy something for yourself, guilt-free, without worrying about all the bills and other things that you need to take care of, or take some time off and do something with yourself, by yourself, without the kids or the significant other. Let's commit to putting ourselves first, to focusing on ourselves, and putting ourselves a little higher up, a couple notches higher up on our to-do list, our daily to-do list. All right, that was our wellness tip, this Wellness Wednesday here on AM Prime. And speaking about wellness, we have Ms. Jessica John, Vice President of the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Nutritionists and Dietitians. And she's going to chat with us about cost-effective ways to lose weight. Well, that's something I'm very interested in hearing about. Also joining us today to speak about our wetlands is Ms. Danielle Hackshaw, as World Wetlands Day is celebrated annually on February 2nd. And finally, we're going to have a carnival conversation with Marcus Braveboy on creating your own lane as an entertainer. After the break, we'll be joined by Attorney at Law, Mr. Fareed Ali, to discuss the current situation regarding the Vindra Naipaul Coolman murder case. We'll be back after this quick break. Stay tuned.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Sing for your lover, baby, sing for your lover.
But that is not the song.
That is my version for the Valentine's Day promo on WESN.
WESN presents its Valentine's Day promotion, Sing for Your Lover.
Send us a video of the best rendition of your favorite love song for the one you love. All contestants have a chance to win a variety of exciting prizes. Send us your entries to thecontentcapital@gmail.com. All videos will be posted to our social media pages and will be shown on WESN.
Well, okay then. Let me sing for my lover. Let me sing for my lover.
My lover. Meet me in the Baraka. Make sure you get tickets early, cause them tickets selling already. We have icons, yes, we have legends, and the young upcoming sensations. Become party, social commentary. We have something for everybody. Pressure for them, joker, faker, and lows. Come to Kaiso House.
Kaiso House in the Barricade, Queen's Park, Savannah, January 27th to February 17th, 2023. Tickets available at
Kaiso House in the Savannah, Crosby's Music Center, St. James, Cambodia Restaurant, San Fernando, Bursa Complex, Grand Bazaar, and Tuco Main Office, Jerningham Avenue, Belmont. Meet me in the Barricade.
It's a fantastic February at Massage Haven as we celebrate Valentine's Carnival and our 1-year anniversary. For the entire month of February, take advantage of our special packages. For Valentine's, show your love with our Lovebirds and I Just Adore You packages. Carnival, let's help you glow with 20% off on all sauna and massage combos. And as we turn 1 year old, a special complimentary Massage Haven tokens of gratitude and keepsakes within our anniversary week. Massage Haven, 157B Monroe Road, Cunupia. With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
the conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back. Joining us now is Attorney at Law, Mr. Fareed Ali. Good morning, Mr. Ali.
Good morning, ma'am.
Thank you for joining us.
It's not a problem. I hope I can be of some assistance. I know that this particular decision by the court has been viewed by the public to be, somewhat outrageous at times. But in my exploration of what has transpired over the last few days, it surprised me that the Attorney General, in a very, very unique fashion, has indicated that that some sort of investigation is to be initiated in relation to the fact that the defense wasn't filed by the Attorney General's office. Let us bear in mind and get to the very nub of the matter. We understand that there was an arrest and charges being laid against these gentlemen as way back as 2007. What would have happened is there would have been a preliminary to determine whether the substance of the evidence that whether that warranted a jury making a determination as to. So there was an evaluative process for the preliminary inquiry is to explore the substance of the evidence that would have been gathered by investigators when charges were preferred in 2007. It meant that, and this is the beauty with the court system and the judicial system, the criminal justice system allows for checks and balances. When it is the preliminary inquiry took place back in and around 2009, the court would have had to make a determination, the magistrate sitting would have had to make a determination whether the evidence was sufficient for a jury to hear. Now, this is what the public needs to understand. The criminal justice system is of such where the vetting process would have started as far back as the preliminary inquiry. So the standard, there are different standards when the court is evaluating evidence. At the magisterial level, the court would have had to look at the evidence and, on a balance of probabilities, examine it and determine, well, whether I am of the view in looking at this evidence, whether it is enough for a jury to deliberate upon. There's a standard in a common law decision, and it goes by the name of one Chaitlal. In that decision, it was determined that if there is no evidence, then the magistrate dismisses the matter against all of these individuals. So it could have been dismissed in 2009 if the magistrate then, who sat and deliberated over this matter, found that there was no evidence. The magistrate also had an opportunity, if there was evidence, but the evidence is not strong enough in her eyes or his eyes, then to dismiss it still. So there's a standard to follow. If there's no evidence, it is thrown out. If there's weak evidence, it is thrown out. That is at the magisterial level. As way back as 2009, that the lower court, in evaluating the evidence in this particular matter, found that there was enough for a jury to hear. Now, when questions are asked in a courtroom and answers are given by witnesses under cross-examination by defense attorneys, and this question being asked and answers being given, all of this would have been offered at the Magistrates Court in 2009. The role of the Magistrates Court at the end of that matter, after the committal proceeding was initiated, meaning after the magistrate found that there was evidence that a jury should hear, that court at that level, at that magisterial level, that court would have put together what we would term a deposition, and that deposition would contain a blueprint of all questions asked and answers given. That deposition is then put together by the district court in which the hearing took place and sent to the DPP's office. What may very well happen, and let me jump to that point, it takes years sometimes before the magisterial court, the district court, prints all those documents and sends to the DPP's office. When they are in receipt of that, when the DPP office receives it, sometimes it's 5 years after, then the Director of Public Prosecution's office, they sit and they read through the deposition and they make a determination as to whether they ought to proceed with this matter at the High Court or whether they could withdraw it. So the DPP's office, he's also involved in the evaluative process. The power of the DPP in Trinidad and Tobago is he has the power to proceed with prosecutions or dismiss prosecutions. So when these individuals got such a high award at the High Court, one may ask, well, maybe perhaps crime pays. To the lay person may be saying, wow, $2 million per person after they sat in a jail for 9 years. What could possibly justify? Well, this is what I'm saying. What justifies it is simply this. You have individuals who were charged in 2007. They only got a High Court trial as far forward as 2016. That's 9 years of their lives being lost. Under the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, every individual under Section 4A has the right to life, liberty, security of person, and enjoyment of property. So it means to say their life and their liberty was suspended. They sat in a jail under squalid conditions. It wasn't the best conditions. Their lives were suspended. They would have had a family life before they were arrested. Some of them in that 9-year period, so many things would have happened. They would have been disconnected from their families, disconnected from their wives, disconnected from their children. They would have been disconnected from their jobs. They would not have been able or may not have been in a position to even earn income to support their families. So it's a disruption. That's emotional turmoil. That is also psychological damage. You're cut off from society and you're being deprived of your ability to contribute to society, of your ability to contribute to your own family life. In fact, you have a right under the Constitution to family life, and the incarceration and the detention that followed arrest for 9 years, all that was deprived of you. So the court has to compensate you for the damage done to not only your reputation, but the fact that you were denied your freedom for such a long period of time. Are you following me?
Yes, no, I follow you, and thank you for that. Now that we understand why the damages were offered to them, what I want to get into is the current issue of the reason why the state didn't put up a defense against the lawsuit brought by the 9 murder accused. Can you shed some perspective on why that may have happened?
Right. So if we examine the decision itself, the case that was brought against the state was a case for malicious prosecution. It was not a case for any on any other limb. Now, the foundation I laid earlier is a foundation of the DPP has the power to withdraw prosecution. right? It means to say, even after they were committed to stand trial in 2009, the DPP had the power to look at the deposition and say, you know what, when I look at this, I cannot see how we can prove beyond reasonable doubt before a jury that these men committed this act. So the DPP now, he would have had to engage the standard required in order to successfully secure conviction. The standard at the magistrate court was a lower standard. All you required is whether the evidence is sufficient for a jury to hear. But in the jury, in terms of the jury hearing, you must look at the evidence now and say, can the jury make a decision beyond reasonable doubt? So the standard would have changed if the DPP, in examining the deposition before the indictment was served on the accused, meaning before they were even brought before the High Court, before a jury was impaneled, if he was of the view that, listen, I don't have enough evidence here to convict beyond reasonable doubt, or he could simply have said to the High Court, I'm withdrawing the prosecution of this matter, and I'm no longer pursuing these men. It meant that they would not have then engaged the courts. It meant that witnesses would not have been called. It would have meant that no jury would have had to be impaneled. The DPP's office simply could have ended this travail. Now, the reason why the prosecution would have been deemed malicious is the DPP had so many opportunities over a 9-year period to withdraw this charge, and he didn't.
And do you have an opinion on why it wasn't withdrawn, why the DPP went forward with the prosecution?
Well, my opinion is this. The criminal justice system is so convoluted. And the DPP, in all fairness to him, he never offered an explanation as to why does he feel, well, when I say why does he fail to withdraw the prosecution if he was of the view that the case was not strong enough to secure conviction. The criminal justice system doesn't allow for that, but I'm saying that there could be a simple explanation. If the deposition, right, that was put together in the district court only reached the DPP's office in 5 years down the line, 6 years down the line, then he would not have had access to that, to the deposition notes to reassess and reevaluate it. And then when it does get to his office, very often there are a number of matters that are similar nature that would have been brought to his office. The very filing system is random. It's not to say, well, it's all computerized, it's all sequenced in a particular way that you can access these matters. I could use a good example. Some years ago, Dwayne Lewis was charged for the murder of one Kiana Comerbatch. That was, if we may put it in very local language, the girl who lived in Maloney, whose body was found stuffed in a barrel there. That deposition that was prepared in 2013 when he was committed, in fact, January 2014, that deposition has not reached the DPP's office yet, and that has been some 8 years ago. So, in other words, the DPP cannot assess that file until it is in his possession. It is very likely, and perhaps questions need to be asked, at what stage did the deposition in this particular matter reach the DPP's office, and at what stage did the DPP sat and evaluate the evidence in this matter? It may simply have been out of his control or beyond his control. And the very fact that he got the deposition late meant that he could not address his mind for a number of years. It is very possible, and it is a live issue in this country, that depositions reach the DPP's office many, many years after. And even when it does reach his hand, he must look at the evidence now. We don't know when he accessed the file, when he looked at this deposition. But the point remains, the indictment was served, and it also remains that he did pursue the matter at the High Court in terms of a jury was impaneled, even when he received it. It could simply be that there were other factors that contributed to the case being thrown out at the no-case submissions. In that 9-year period, witnesses may have died. In the 9-year period, witnesses' memory may have faded. In the 9-year period, you may have found situations where the state couldn't offer evidence. Evidence comes before the court, and evidence comes in degrees and nuances. There's real evidence, such as CCTV footage. There's the scientific evidence, fingerprint, DNA. There is circumstantial evidence. There is also evidence coming together as a cocktail. Very often what may have happened, and this may have contributed to the case falling, these men, in the state piloting the case against them, the evidence on the day couldn't, because of time and because of circumstance, may have been compromised. The very integrity of the proceedings may have been compromised by the quality of the evidence, because it's been so many years after witnesses' memory fade, witnesses die. The CCTV footage may have been compromised. If it is the identification evidence, witness may not have been able to offer that. We don't know what all the factors are that would have contributed for our unsuccessful prosecution. But the court may have deemed it, in this instance, malicious, because not filing the defense means to say it's a signal by the AG's office that we don't have a leg to stand on, and we, in not having a leg to stand on, cannot even offer a defense. So in not offering a defense, it may not be that there was any sort of delinquency arising out of the AG's office, that the defense wasn't filed. It could have simply been, this matter is of such where we cannot see logically why it is what we can offer to counter the claim brought by Mr. Ramlogan and by the attorneys representing the interests of the in this case, the men who won their matter before the court of 2016. So in 2020, when they filed, and the AG's office had was placed in a position where they need to file a response as to why it is damages in terms of money could not have been paid to these individuals for the wrong that was done to them. If the AG's office is of the view that, listen, this case should not have even been brought against them, or indictment should not have been read, or jury should not have been even placed in a position to evaluate their innocence or guilt. The AG's office simply could have said, we don't have a leg to stand on. So they didn't file a defense because they didn't see the worth in filing a defense as something that they couldn't in any possible way respond to. So they literally threw in the towel, and they're not throwing in the towel off of delinquency or throwing in the towel off of any other factor that, they wrongdoing on their part in terms of not offering the defense. It simply meant that what defense could be offered?
Okay.
The prosecution, the matter came before the court, and the defense attorneys were able to successfully navigate their defense in terms of showing that this evidence is weak, it's not strong. Okay. So no defense being filed is simply because we don't have a leg to stand on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ali. Thanks for sharing your perspective on this situation, this current situation. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have this morning. So we want to thank you for joining us. We're going to take a quick break now, and when we come back...
I hope I was of some assistance. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be back.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back. Joining us now in studio is Ms. Jessica John, Vice President of the Trinidad and Tobago Nutritionists Association of Nutritionists and Dietitians. Sorry. Good morning, Ms. John. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, great. So for me, the term dieting or going on a diet, the phrase going on a diet, puts the fear of God into me and some people. So much so that, you know, it's actually hard to actually start that diet or, you know, whatever your program you're looking at. What would you say is the most effective way to think about our diets and dieting in general? And is dieting really the word we want to use?
Yeah. Okay. So I will start with your last question first. In the science of nutrition, a diet is really your usual intake or what you eat on a regular basis, what you drink on a regular basis. So it's not necessarily a restriction. Okay, so it's what you eat on a regular basis. So you have a weight gain diet, for example, or a low carbohydrate diet, or you would have a diet that is specific to a particular medical condition like diabetes. But so diet doesn't necessarily mean restricting your intake per se. All right, so let's clarify that. And when it comes to eating, all right, the focus and the emphasis should always be healthy eating. So healthy eating pays attention to not just, okay, whether I'm skinny or whether I'm big, but also your health condition at the end of it. I always emphasize persons paying attention to their health status. So your food choices then should support your health. So you make choices in light of, one, your age, your stage of life, so whether you're a child or an adult, whether you're pregnant or not. Two, you make choices in light of the fact of your risk factors, your disease risk factors, or if you have a medical condition. And so therefore your food choices must support whatever your health status is, if I'm clear, yeah? So that's what you want to focus on, and then we pay attention to your weight loss, because being healthy is not just a number. It's not just about losing a particular amount of weight. You want to be healthy at the end of your weight loss journey. And as I tell most people, weight loss or being healthy is not just, okay, you arrive at a particular weight, you have to also work to maintain your weight as well.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up for us. Now, you're here to talk about weight loss and how to do so in the most cost-effective way. Can you tell us some more about that, about managing a weight loss program on a limited budget?
Yes. So whether we're on a budget or not, basic nutrition knowledge is essential to eating healthy, because as I'm stressing, you don't want to just lose your weight and then, okay, you've gotten down, let's say you are 210 and you've gotten down to 170. You don't want to just lose the weight and then, okay, you start back eating regularly, maybe the weight might go back up. We see a lot of persons having that kind of yo-yo effect. So what we want as much as possible is to have a basic nutrition knowledge. So if we can show the slide I sent to you guys about the Caribbean food groups, and I use the Caribbean food groups because we're here in the Caribbean, okay, so having a basic understanding of the different food groups and the major nutrients that you get, this would be very essential to helping you make informed decisions about your meal combinations, because sometimes you have persons who don't have a good nutrition background or who are not qualified, letting you know, okay, eat this or don't eat that, when actually you're setting yourself up for exacerbating any underlying health condition, micronutrient deficiencies, etc. Okay, so you want as much as possible to understand what the Caribbean food groups are and the meal combination that is essential to, again, your weight loss journey. The second thing I'd address before we get to actually cost-effective ways is to actually understand the behaviors. We've heard the term lifestyle before, right? In terms of lifestyle, health, and all of that. So you have to address certain behaviors in your weight loss journey. Sometimes with weight loss, or most times with weight loss, it's actually more important how you do what you do rather than what you do. So a lot of times persons focus on, okay, I'm not eating this, or I'm eating this, or I'm not eating after 6, or I'm eating after 6, or whatever it is that you may be doing. What you have to focus on is on the big picture first. So let's start. If we're looking at on a budget, you want to focus on how you're managing your finances in the first place, okay? Your food is just one expense out of many expenses. So you need to focus on your spending habits, okay? You need to look at your non-essentials, your needs versus your wants, all right? So that's one behavior we'd address. You need to look at how do you manage stress? Most times when we're stressed out, our eating habits they don't support weight loss. That's something that you need to address. You'd also need to pay attention to your usual relationship with food. When I say your usual relationship, do you usually have a lot of fruits and vegetables? You would want to pay attention to how often you eat out. All of these things impact your weight loss journey more than what you're putting in your mouth. And the last thing I'd mention in terms of the lifestyle factors is if you exercise on a regular basis. You want that exercise is a part of your weight loss journey, because if you're not exercising, it means that you're depending on some kind of chemical or some chemical reaction in your body, maybe some tablet to lose weight or what have you, or you're taking some kind of drastic diet. And again, those are not healthy solutions to your weight loss. Okay, so in terms of the actual points, because I know that's what we want to get to, the cost-effective ways in terms of losing weight, what I would start off with again is planning. Planning is essential to your weight loss journey. Planning your meals. Again, the basic nutrition knowledge is important with the food group combinations, knowing where you get certain nutrients, because again, you want to be healthy at the end of your weight loss journey. Okay, and planning your meals is essential, so you'd know what your combinations should look like. Yeah, are you with me, Ms. Roy?
I'm following you.
Okay, good. So you want as much as possible to plan your meals in advance, making sure that you have the correct combinations. And again, you need basic nutrition education. And that only comes, of course, by going to a qualified nutritionist or dietitian to help you, okay? You want as much as possible to pay attention to buying only what you need when you go to the grocery, okay? Try to avoid impulse buyings. Again, having a list would help you with that. If we're looking at the Caribbean food groups, you would notice that there's a group called the foods from animals and fruits and vegetables. Well, three groups, okay? Foods from animals, fruits and vegetables. And the truth is, these are actually the more expensive foods categories out there, okay? But that doesn't mean that we should avoid buying, especially your fruits and vegetables. So, of course, again, planning is essential. But when it comes to your foods from animals, you want to stretch the money as far as possible. So one, you can buy cheaper cuts. Cheaper cuts tend to be more tough, but again, with planning, you would know how to cook it properly, cook it for longer, so it breaks down those fibers, so it's actually more tender. Two, you want to combine your foods from animals with different food groups. So for example, combining your foods from animals with your legumes. So for example, your peas and your beans. A good example would be like minced beef with some kind of lentils, or minced beef with saltfish. You have the flavor of the meal, but you're still getting your protein coming from the legumes, as well as the food from animals, and again, the combination with your other food groups would ensure that you're getting the nutrition that you need. Yeah? So smaller amounts of foods from animals combined with other foods will help to make sure you're getting sufficient protein, okay? You want to, again, so I am emphasizing the legumes. Legumes are a low-cost protein food that are high in fiber, that are low in fat. So again, once they're combined properly, you will be getting sufficient nutrition, okay? If you're looking at another low-cost option when it comes to foods from animals, try to use more eggs. Compared to meat, fish, and poultry, your eggs are relatively cheaper, all right? So you need to get very creative in the ways of incorporating your eggs into your meals, but it is possible, all right? And again, compared to your meat, fish, and poultry, they're actually a lot cheaper.
Okay, you mentioned our Caribbean food groups, and I know dietitians and nutritionists like yourself typically tell their clients to use what's accessible to you. Use the fruits and vegetables that are in season. Now, however, some fruits are notoriously, known for their high sugar content. How do you combat that? How do you, ensure that you don't overdo it? I mean, I feel like I can eat fruit multiple times a day when, in truth and fact, I've been told that maybe it's just a half of a grapefruit after a meal and that kind of stuff. So how do you, really balance that?
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up the vegetables, because that would have been my other point in terms of making sure you get your fruits and your vegetables in. And yes, I agree, fruits can be a high sugar food. Now, I say can be, not all the time, right? So again, coming back to the basic nutrition education, because most persons like to skip this step. All right, there we have the Caribbean food group straight. So most persons like to skip this step of the nutrition education, but you have to understand what are the major nutrients in your fruits, for example. So yes, a lot of fruits can be high sugar. So you want to understand that fruits are part of a healthy diet. Persons who are going, for example, on a fruit fast or fruit diet, and they're thinking it's low carb, it's not. Okay, so one of the things we can do again is understand that again fruits should be consumed between meals. For someone who's losing weight, I would not recommend having fruits in the morning just because of how the body reacts into the hormones to the high sugar intake the first thing in the morning. So have your fruits between meals. Fruit should not replace a meal, because if you're replacing your staple foods and your legumes and your foods from animals in what you would get in a regular meal, then you are losing out on the nutrition there. And if you don't have sufficient fiber and sufficient energy, etc., protein, etc., again, you will be hungry. Okay, so my recommendation is to have your fruits between meals, combine your fruits with other foods. So, for example, I always tell persons, make a chow with pineapple and cucumber. Stretch the fruits, all right? You don't get as much sugar in there. Maybe have your fruit with something else, like nuts, okay? Peanuts are the cheapest nuts out there, so combine your fruits with peanuts, all right? And then you have the cost would be more effective. Well, it will be more economical for you.
Okay. Well, before we wrap, how do we, so there are these different popular fasting, intermittent fasting, keto diet, slim fast, you know, the meat one, the one where you eat meat, a lot of meat. How do we determine which weight loss program is in fact good for you as opposed to which may be detrimental to our bodies?
Yes, so very good question. As I said at the beginning, start with your health status. You don't want to start a weight loss regimen and you are prone to developing diabetes or you're hypertensive. One of the reasons that COVID-19 hit a lot of persons so hard is because we didn't know what conditions we had. We don't go to the doctor, we only go when we're sick or we have an aversion to going in the first place. So you must know your health status before you start any kind of intensive weight loss program or you start any drastic change to your diet. Understand what your health condition is, because yes, as I said at the beginning, you can lose the weight, but at the end of it, you would not be healthy, you could be sick at the end of it, right? So what I would say with that, again, understand your health status. Secondly, a lot of these diets are very restrictive and very expensive. So if we're looking at cost-effective ways to lose weight, that is not the way to go, because if you have to buy these expensive meal replacement shakes or buy the foods from animals as a major part of your diet for that particular period of time, again, it's expensive. So if you're telling me you could afford this, then you're not looking at cost-effective ways to manage your weight, okay? And then you want to pay attention to the fact that you want your weight loss to be sustainable, because at the end of the day, you can lose the weight on a particular type of very restrictive diet. But once you start back to your regularly scheduled program, you're going to put back on the weight. So you want your weight loss regime to be as sustainable as possible. And that means not focusing on restrictive eating, but on a sustainable way of eating. That's a lifestyle change. As I mentioned before, a lot of the behaviors we need to get in place before we pay attention to what we're eating.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. John, for your tips. So in summary, we want to understand what our health needs are. We want to know or have an idea of the nutritional value of the foods that we are putting in our bodies. And in terms of the cost effectiveness of our dieting, we want to use what we have. We want to use what we have,
available to you.
What's available to you, and consider sustainability, of course, of your routine and your diet. Thank you very much for your tips. I know it may be a little late for those of you preparing for Carnival 2023, but I think we have quite a few useful tips for those of you who have, you know, to help meet our weight loss goals for the new year on our to-do list. Thank you again. Have a good day.
Thank you.
World Wetlands Day is coming up on February 2nd, and joining us after the break is Ms. Danielle Hackshaw to talk some more about this. We'll be back.
Make sure you get tickets early, got them tickets selling already. We are icons, yes, we are legends, and the young upcoming sensations become party social commentary. We are something for everybody. Pressure for them, joker, faker, and lows. Come to Kaiso House.
Kaiso House in the Barricade, Queen's Park, Savannah, January 27th to February 17th, 2023. Tickets available at
Kaiso House in the Savannah, Crosby's Music Center, St. James, Cambule Restaurant, San Fernando, Ursa Complex, Grand Bazaar, and Tuco Main Office, Jerningham Avenue, Belmont. Meet me in the Barricade.
On Friday, February 3rd, at the Central Bank Auditorium, it's Light Up the Night, Volume 3, a veteran calypso showpiece. Come, enjoy a night of stars to light up your night with Tobago Crusoe, D. Alberto, Chogdus, Ray Holman, Leston Paul, Short Pants, The Bagman, and Alexander the Great. Showtime, 7:30 p.m. at the Central Bank Auditorium. Tickets cost $250. Get your tickets now at Crosby St. James. Mesa Limited at 628-5092 or 628-5094. And at the Central Bank box office on February 2nd only. Call for reservations at 621-2288, extension 6345. Don't miss this veteran calypso showpiece, Light Up the Night, Volume 3, Friday, February 3rd.
QRC Fête Royale. We home!
On Saturday, 4th February, from 6 p.m. to 1 a.m.
We present our honorary Royalians. Voice and the top 5 band.
Cass the Band.
Patrice Roberts.
Ricardo True and the 18 Band.
Nadia Batson.
And Rafi B.
First edition tickets on sale now at the QRC box office.
Bagalito Enterprises.
Online tickets available at ticketfederation.com.
And suntix.com.
Thanks for staying with us. Environmentalist Ms. Danielle Hackshaw joins us now via Zoom to talk about World Wetlands Day coming up on February 2nd. Good morning, Ms. Hackshaw.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us.
Not a problem.
Okay, so tell us, what is the significance of World Wetlands Day in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, the significance of World Wetland Day in general, it is the day that we would have ratified the Convention of Wetlands, International Wetlands, which is called the Ramsar Convention. It would have been signed in 1971. I believe Trinidad would have signed ours in 1993. So it is a way that we commemorate the place that wetlands hold within our land, our earth. And it is a way that we can show our form of, promote awareness on it, show our form of support for what it can do for our society and our economy, and understand that there is an importance to wetlands within our daily living.
Okay, so that brings us directly to my next question. What's the importance of the wetlands in our society?
Well, a wetland, let's start with the definition of a wetland, right? A wetland is essentially a land that is covered with water. This water can be fresh, salt, or brackish, right? And sometimes it is a place that is called a transition zone. So it is a place that may be between two natural bodies, or a place that may be between an artificial body and a natural body, right? So meaning to say, like we have our Caroni Swamp. It is between the middle, it is in the middle, I should say, of the Caroni River and the sea. So it's a great way where if there's flooding, it goes to that area. It is also a place where farming can happen. We have, low-lying wetlands where farming can happen. There's also fishing, different forms of fishing that can happen within a wetland. You have shrimp, oysters, those different things that can happen there. Also, a wetland is a safe space in terms of storm protection as well. So when you talk about mangroves, they are basically what I call our protectors in a way where they take the impact of a storm for us. So wetlands in general, it is a place where it is very dynamic in terms of ecosystems and in terms of its ability to provide nutrients for farming. It's a place where we can get many resources such as timber, as I would have mentioned before, fishing elements such as oysters, shrimp, different form of catch. So it is a great space where it can provide a sense of livelihood as well. So there are many different facets of why a wetland is important to us as people, not just Trinidad, but us as people.
Okay, so you mentioned farming. How important is our wetlands in farming specifically in our local landscape?
Well, you would see areas whereby there are rice farming, there is sugarcane, there is plantain, and this is because there are areas whereby plants that enjoy the shallow roots, they tend to thrive in wetland areas because of the soil content. The topsoil of a wetland can be very high in nutrients. So we have areas, and I mean, we would see it when we're driving along by the Caroni Bridge. You will see where persons are farming in areas that are like a floodplain, which is also considered a wetland based on the fact that sometimes it's temporarily based with water, right? So because a wetland can either be permanent or it can be temporary, right? And it could be seasonal as well. So we have different spaces, and I can actually state that in a policy that would have been developed in, I believe, 2002, they actually identified more than 71 areas that can be deemed wetlands, right? But
that's locally?
Yes.
Okay.
But some of these areas are under a lot of pressure in terms of, being backfilled or being urbanized, and those areas, removal of mangroves to reclaim land, those type of things, right? But we do have like 3 main wetlands that we acknowledge under the convention. So within different areas where you see particular farming going on, such as, rice or sugarcane and so on, those areas are deemed wetlands and they're high in nutrients.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And now moving on to the topic of global warming, and I mean climate change is affecting everyone, everywhere, the world over. How does it affect the wetland ecosystem here in Trinidad and Tobago, and what are the factors playing against the ecosystem?
Well, one thing you need to keep in mind is with global warming, you have high sea levels because, you have the melting of the land, ice caps and so on. But with that understanding, there's also urbanization that's happening, right? So you have a space where we have flooding. Like let's have a conversation about the flooding that we would have experienced last year. Yes, a wetland area would appreciate flooding because, it basically braces itself to take the flooding that may happen within 2 different spaces. However, too much of a good thing is not a good thing, right? So you have a situation where if you had to use the impact of flooding, it would then create a space where there's pollutants within the wetland, there is overnutrients within the wetland, there's debris, there's heavy metals, there is loss of vegetation, which then exposes us even more to the brunt of what global warming can provide to us. So, and I'm speaking from us from a Trinidad perspective, right? Mm-hmm. So if it is, we have longer hot days. I mean, right now we have really experienced what I can call a cold front. But if we were to experience longer hot days, you're talking about spaces that may be temporary wetlands that are drying up, and where is that space to protect should there be a flood? Should there be a place to do farming, all of those things, we can lose it due to global warming. And not only that, our places that are permanent can get constantly polluted due to floodwaters. And if not floodwaters, it would be human exploiting, you know? So you have those elements that you have to balance in terms of, okay, yes, there's global warming, which can be deemed a human fault to some extent, but you need to keep in mind that there are ecosystems that create a balance and need a balance in order to thrive within the ecosystem. So therefore, with those elements such as, I will speak of flooding because it would have been very pertinent to us in the latter part of last year. When you have those extreme areas of flooding, you're talking about, over sedimentation and all of those things, which can severely disrupt the ecosystem entirely.
Okay. Now, taking into consideration that the balance of the ecosystem is largely based on climate, on what's going on around us with respect to the climate. Is there anything, what, if anything, is there that we can do to take personal responsibility in protecting or even towards restoration of the wetlands that we may be losing?
Well, it's interesting that you said restoration because the theme for this year's Wetland Day is it's time for wetland restoration, right? So the first place I would start is in order to have an appreciation or in order to want to protect, you must have an appreciation of wetlands. You must have a sense of reverence for it. And I always try to encourage persons that, go see the Caroni Swamp, go enjoy the Booker Reef, because those places are deemed protected wetlands by us under the convention. So first, have an appreciation for what they can do and what they hold. And then from there, you can, understand its role within our space. And you can put forward a sense of awareness in terms of how you behave or how you practice within those areas. Aside from that, we also, inside of personal responsibility, which takes a bit of a culture change or a mental change, you also have legislation which would protect or form some form of conservation for wetlands. So, you have the EMA Act, you have the Town and Country Act, you have the Forestry Act, and again, I would have mentioned the Ramsar Convention. So we have different spaces whereby we can conserve and protect wetlands. However, keep in mind that policies are not essentially law. But we do have spaces within different legislation within Trinidad that protects different elements of wetlands. So we have within the EMA Act, you have the environmentally sensitive areas which would protect particular wetlands, So we have those elements, but I will say from a personal perspective, know the role of a wetland. Experience it for the recreation that it has. And when you have that experience, you can then transfer it into wanting to ensure that, you don't, let's go to something very layman. You don't litter, you don't throw garbage within there because that would then, reach to pollutants affecting the ecosystems there, So I always start from a place of appreciation, enjoying for what it is, go visit it, those type of things. And then from that, understand the role that wetlands play within our society, within livelihoods of many persons. And then from there, you can understand, if you want to bring in the legislation as element, know what you can and what you can't do within there, and don't break the law.
Okay. All right, Ms. Hackshaw, thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. The news is at the top of the hour, so we'll be right back with more on AM Prime.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. 2 appear in court charged with multiple counts of murder. Firearms and quantities of marijuana seized in Central Division. Attorney says state must answer to the public why it presented no defense in Naipaul-Coolman case. And internationally, French protests intensify against pension age rise. Now for the details. 2 men have appeared in court charged with multiple counts of murder arising out of 2 separate incidents which occurred in 2020 and 2022. In the most recent incident, Shaquille James of Princestown was charged with the murders of 1-year-old Nova Shai Brereton, her mother, 32-year-old Sasha Colonel Elliott, and the attempted murder of a 40-year-old man. Elliott, her daughter, and the third person were at her business place in the Indian Walk district on December 19, 2022, when they were approached by 2 men who shot them. In the second matter, Kevin Oliver of Point Fortin appeared in court on Monday, charged with the murders of Cecilyn Farrell, Patrick Farrell, and Skylar's Cadet, and 1 count of arson which occurred on February 27, 2020. The remains of the 3 victims were found at their Point Fortin home on February 27, 2020. Several persons were arrested while 2 firearms and quantities of marijuana were seized by officers of the Central Division during coordinated anti-crime exercises in the Chaguanas, Couva, and Freeport districts. During the exercise, an abandoned house was searched which resulted in 1 revolver, 1 bulletproof vest, 1 hat, 1 leg holster, 1 magazine pouch, 1 handcuff pouch, and 1 pistol holster being discovered. 2 suspects were also held during the exercise. In the Freeport district, officers of the CID conducted an exercise at Buckaroo Road, during which they found 1 Glock 19 pistol loaded with a magazine containing 3 rounds of ammunition. Attorney at law Larry Lala says the public deserves an explanation as to why the state failed to file a defense in a civil action claiming malicious prosecution brought by 9 former accused in the Vindra Naipaul-Coolman case.
Why did the state not put forward before the court evidence to show that there was reasonable cause to charge the men? It warrants a detailed explanation by the Attorney General, because at the end of the day, the officers that have conduct of this matter on behalf of the state fall within his purview. I don't want to cast any blame, but I'm saying that there's a need for an urgent and proper explanation to the public.
In international news now, France has seen a second wave of protests and strikes against President Emmanuel Macron's plans to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. Big marches took place across France after a first day of action attracted more than 1 million people. 8 big unions took part in the strike, which disrupted schools, public transport, and oil refineries. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for staying with us. We are into our second hour here at AM Prime on WESN. We're going to take a look at some more newspaper headlines. In the Tobago Newsday, Buccaneers Steel Orchestra plays Black Stallions Bun Them during the Panorama Lodge Conventional preliminary judging. That's a picture on the front page of the Tobago Newsday. And TSTT invests $120 million in infrastructure nationally, fast internet for 95% of Tobago. And in sport, Eve scouts for talent. TT coach satisfied with 2-0 win, but St. Martin Ore's game. That's the back of the newspaper there. All right, so joining us now for our carnival conversations, we have Marcus Braveboy, and he is here to discuss He's a singer, songwriter, marketing consultant, an entrepreneur. He wears many hats. Marcus Braveboy. Good morning, Marcus. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
How are you?
I am fine,
Morning,
thanks.
and Tobago.
Okay, great. So I know you don't consider yourself a soca artist or a particular type of artist of any kind, but with your release of Big Man Don't Cry at the end of last year, what are your plans for the carnival season? What are you doing right now?
So it's interesting. I consider myself to be in the global market, over the past, let's say, 4 or 5 years. So while it is the carnival season, an artist like myself, I do music, record music throughout the year. Right now, I'm actually, in terms of the music industry, I'm working on a lot of writing projects. Also, I'm working in the area of licensing, music licensing as well, with some companies in America. So it's been pretty busy for me. I'm also prepping as an artist to release music. Like, for example, my next song is with Collis Duranti, and that is for this market. But then I also have another song with an artist named Scorpiano from Serbia, and that is the follow-up single that's going to be released in April. And then after that, I have EDM songs releasing in Denmark and in Germany. So for me, it's just, I'm an interesting person to ask that question to. I think some years ago, I would have said, well, it's carnival and I don't sing soca, so I just waiting. But honestly, I've learned about a whole new global industry and I'm just pursuing it.
Right, so you're taking advantage of your networking on the global level to, push yourself and push your brand.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So tell me, how does one find, you've spoken about yourself as an entertainer and as an entrepreneur, and you've spoken about yourself a couple years down the road previously to today. How does one find their own lane as an entertainer in this industry? I mean, we can't all be a promoter, we can't all throw a fet. How do you find your own lane in this industry, in the local industry?
I think I would encourage people to try everything. I mean, personally, I've done everything in the industry, from artist manager to promoter, to, at one point in time, a friend of mine started a music distribution company years ago, and I was the operations manager. So I have so many different experiences, I would say. But I think you have to, one, find what you're good at, and two, also, it's a business, so find what makes money as well. And I think it's a balance of that and also what you're really passionate about. And I think if you can find a sweet spot with all those three, I think it should be good to go. But I would encourage, especially any young person, try different things, because you really never know what you'll be good at unless you, just get some experience in it. We lack mentors in Trinidad, but you can find mentors online. If it is for some reason in your particular field, there aren't mentors here, I would encourage young people to, the internet is your friend, so just whatever you're interested in, whether it is music distribution, music publishing, music licensing, events, you can just go on Google or YouTube.
Okay, so you're speaking about finding the balance between, for you, it's been about finding the balance between music, something that you're passionate about, you love, and business, making money. Yeah?
Yeah, which is I think traditionally, especially in Trinidad and Tobago households, anytime you say that you are in entertainment, this is from the Calypso days, parents will always get worried, about how is my son or daughter going to make money. But I do think in 2023, a lot has changed, and there are even, tertiary education opportunities for different aspects of the entertainment industry, or there are courses you can take online, or you can, you could find a mentor, or you can apprentice with somebody and learn more about it. But yeah, there are opportunities.
Well, it's funny enough that you brought up your tertiary education, because your initial background was in law. Correct me if I'm right?
Yes, and so for me, I actually studied law for entertainment. I early in the industry, I remember going to meetings, and I have to big up Karen James, entertainment attorney Karen James. I remember being in rooms with producers and artists, and then when he spoke, everybody just stopped and listened to him. And a piece of me just wanted that to understand what he understood. And also, I just learned from a very young age, you have to protect yourself. I heard so many from our Calypsonians, straight up to our soca chutney artists. You know, a lot of people always complain about being ripped off. And I made a decision from a very young age that I did not want to be ripped off. And I always wanted to protect myself and also protect others. So that is actually why I studied law, for entertainment.
For entertainment. Okay, and is it that music was always at the top of your mind as well in terms of something that you wanted to get into?
Yeah, I mean, rest in peace, Dad. My dad passed away last year, and I have to always thank my dad because my dad is my biggest influence in terms of music. From a very young age, driving to elementary school, primary school, you know, we'd be singing calypsos, and I've been writing since I'm pretty much born, you know, so music has been in me. I used to enter calypso competitions. I was on 12 and under. So I realized that I was really bred for for this industry, but in many different ways, not just as an artist, but also as somebody who just appreciates culture, somebody who defends culture, and somebody who understands that there needs to be some structure and business for the culture.
Okay. Tell us a little more about your journey thus far and the progress that you've been making in the global networking. Now you're going into licensing of music on a global level or outside of the region. Tell us a little more about your journey in that respect.
No problem. So in terms of the international industry, I think my first real break was probably like about 10 years ago. An artist by the name of Ardian Boyupi he's Albanian, who was based in Germany. A producer that I was working with him, who I got connected with through a friend, wanted me on a song. So I'm actually on a big artist from Albania's album. This is when I was going under Mark Hardy. And that album was signed to Universal Germany. And I didn't know anything about the industry back then. So I could tell you straight up, honestly, that nothing was signed. You know, I just went into it blindly. But having that international opportunity happen so early in my career, I was able to learn from it. Then the second time around, I got opportunities in electronic music, EDM music, through my friends Bad Royal. And I was able to perform in America. I performed at the Lollapalooza Festival in Chicago. I performed at Miami Music Week several times. I performed at clubs in San Diego and Los Angeles as well. So in terms of live, that was my experience there. In terms of music licensing and publishing, I do have songs on Netflix, Fast and the Furious, Speed Racers, also on one or two other shows produced on Netflix. There's a real estate show. I'm trying to remember the name as we talk it. But yeah, so I was able to really see how that, you know, there's a side of the industry called library music, where songs are signed in a library. It's almost like you record a song and it's now in a library of music that's shopped to different music supervisors. So thanks to my friend Ty Frankel from Shutdown Music, I was open to that lane in the entertainment industry. And yeah, otherwise, I mean, I have songs signed to several labels around the world. Like, I'm not signed, I'm an independent artist, but I found out that, you know, you can be an independent artist but sign songs. Oh. And I think these are all things that I just have to learn myself. You know, we don't really have persons teaching us that here. So I was able to learn a lot about, I say, from intellectual property, royalties, licensing, publishing, music distribution. I have my own label, so I do every aspect of the industry myself. So that's where the legal background definitely helps. And yeah, I'm just learning a lot every day. You learn every day. It's a never-ending process.
Okay. You mentioned your first big breakthrough roughly about 10 years ago. What would you consider to date your greatest achievement or the achievement that you're most proud of on your journey thus far?
I would say Lollapalooza is performing there. Even though I was a guest artist of Bad Royal, it allowed me. I'm actually on Billboard magazine's website. Just a picture of myself, not necessarily my name, but just, you know, in terms of a mood board and inspiration. I could always look at that and be reminded, wow, I'm so close, you know, so close yet so far. So I would say Lollapalooza just because it made me really experience what it's like to be an artist in the international market in terms of treatment, you know, in terms of how I was treated from the beginning and ending of the process. And also just to see how far something could go, you know, and I performed to like approximately 10,000 persons on the stage I performed on, and they had no idea who I was. And, you know, I use my Trinidadian, you know, like I'll say soca tactics by saying left, right, you know. You're happy to be here, and, you know, I was able to get a great response. So for me, I would say that has definitely been my biggest achievement in my career. And then I would also mention Trapso in Trinidad. I think myself, Young Rod, and Explicit Mevon, big up Mevon especially, who's having an excellent year in the soca industry. But yeah, we created a genre called Trapso, and in our minds, we made history. As in, in Trinidad, they say if you sing hip hop, you know, don't sing hip hop because it has no place in Trinidad. But we were able to have 4 years of consistent airplay. We won a COT Award, Viewer's Choice COT Award, and we did so many great things. So I think those two are my greatest achievements.
Okay, and congratulations on that. Indeed, I can't imagine, but I do congratulate you on the strides you've made thus far in your personal branding. What advice would you give an upcoming artist who is not necessarily into the soca genre, or who just generally wants to get out there? What advice would you give to upcoming artists in terms of putting themselves out there?
I would say that your network is your net worth, and I would say that because for me, networking is an everyday thing, and sometimes people see me achieve things and they're just confused, like, how do you do a song with somebody in Taiwan? How do you even know somebody in Taiwan? And the truth is, I met them online, you know. So I would say, find your way. I slide in somebody's DM, as cliche as that sounds. I slide in people's DMs all the time in the industry, and I say, hey, I'm an artist from Trinidad. I have a new song out. Would you mind taking a listen? And you'd be surprised how many people respond. And I can tell you a quick story about a success story with that. One of my songs is Signed to Zumba, which is a song with my friend Alex Mura. And the way I got signed to Zumba is I literally DM'd Zumba instructors around the world and said, hey, I'm an artist from Trinidad. I'm trying to make music for Zumba. Would you mind taking a listen? And one of the instructors actually liked it, and her boyfriend knew somebody in Zumba, and that connected a Zumba deal a few weeks later. So that's my advice to artists. Just don't be afraid to network and learn as much as possible. You know, even if you don't like traditional education, you know, per se, education is important either way. So the internet is a form of education, and, you know, it's your friend. So education and networking, definitely the keys to success.
And I think what is very important in your story as well is you didn't box yourself in the local networking sphere. You kind of thought outside of the box, and you went outside to network, whether online or otherwise. You did mention a Siberia recording artist that you're working with. Is there anything else you can tell us about that on the upcoming release?
I can tell you it's a funny story. Her name is Scorpiana, and she's a fan, and I can say it because, you know, she always tells me that, you know, like, I love your music, I love your voice, and she always told me that, you know, like, one day we can do a song together. And I'll be honest with you, as an artist, you get those, you know, messages a lot, and you just be like, okay, cool, no problem. And a year later, she sent me a song, and it was a great song. And I recorded my verse and I sent it to her, and yeah, we are in the process of planning a release, a music video. We're trying to decide whether we do, you know, where she shoots it in her side of the world, I shoot it in my side of the world, or if we find a way to link up where I go on that side of the world. So that's being discussed and negotiated right now. But the topic of the song, I would just say it's about vitamin G. I can't really say there's on national TV, but it is an interesting song, definitely an interesting song. And Yeah, and the EDM songs, I guess I can mention. There's a DJ producer from the Netherlands named Looney Tunes, and the song is signed to their label, so you can look out for that as well.
Okay, tell me, you were you referred to yourself as Mark Hardy initially, and you have transitioned to, well, under your label, Brave House Music, right? Are you what do you go by now?
So my Brave Boy, shameless plug on my brand. But, so I can just explain that really quickly. My government name is Marcus Hilton Brave Boy, and I studied law. I also have my own social media agency called Ike Consulting Limited, which is I Know Everybody Consulting Limited. So for a while, I was juggling day and night, where any day I would go to meetings and pitch my social media services, and then any night I'll go Woodford Cafe and perform, So I thought I had to separate the brands. So I would go to meetings as my real name, Marcus Brave Boy, and any night perform as Mark Hardy. And Mark Hardy was like a close, it's a close version of Brave Boy. Mark for Marcus, Hardy means strong or resilient. And I was like, okay, that's close enough to Brave Boy, to being brave. And after a while, there were other Mark Hardys in the international music industry, and a lot of them involved in controversial stuff. So I decided that, every time I travel, people would say, wow, your name is Brave Boy, that's so cool. So I decided, you know what, it's time. Let me just go as one thing. And my real name is Marcus Brave Boy. My stage name is Brave Boy.
Okay, understood. So I mentioned the transition because I wanted to ask specifically how important it is to market yourself as a brand. So now, you speak of Brave Boy, Brave House Productions. How important would you say is it to market yourself specifically as a brand?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think especially in the modern music industry, I would say it's 70% marketing, 30% talent. A lot of purists in the industry hate to hear that because they feel like the industry is any and everybody could get a chance now, but it's just a reality. And you can go viral on social media and get a record deal the next day. Compared to in our grandparents' days or even in our parents' days, it was based on talent. You had to be extremely talented. And I'm not saying that the persons who go viral are not talented, but I think their talent is different. And I think being able to market and brand yourself is a talent on its own, and you have to stand out because there's so many artists right now in the world. How do you stand out from the other artists? So for me, whether it's my style with my hat or my glasses or my, my chains that I wear, or even in terms of the kind of artwork that I do, in terms of the music videos, like what do I do to stand out? Like my fashion is something that I use to stand out. So I've always found ways, especially in the international market, to try to stand out. Some persons say my smile is part of my brand as well. So if I don't smile, then they want to know what's wrong with me. But all those things I mentioned are actually brand attributes. And my background in marketing definitely has helped me. For years, I was trying to figure out exactly what's the best way to market myself. But I think after a while, like doing my own market research by just putting out a lot of music and a lot of content, I'm able to realize what does the international market like from me versus what the local market likes from me. And I've used that to kind of curate my releases and curate my branding and curate, my music videos, etc.
Okay. So I know just before we go, because I'm being told we need to wrap, locally we have a habit of associating, I mean in general in the music world, in the entertainment industry, we have a habit of associating a personal brand with the person's music, and it's very hard for fans to separate the person from their music. Is that possible at all? And what are the drawbacks, very quickly, of making your brand, making yourself your personal brand?
I can tell you the honest truth in Trinidad. I think persons who know me, especially on the social scene, I grew up, I guess, with some popularity. just being I guess like somebody on the social scene, and I used to throw parties and I was on committees. So people knew me as that. And then it's now the person that you're hanging out with or, you know, on a committee with is now on a stage performing or on the radio and getting a certain level of celebrity. And that came with ups and downs. You know, some people don't really like that you are there now. They wanted you next to them all the time. You know, so I had to deal with that as well. But otherwise, for me personally, I found ways to do all at the same time, which is rare, you know. I look at persons like Diddy and, you know, like Jay-Z, who are entrepreneurs and artists. And I think that is the road I'm trying to take. But other than, you know, some people not really finding that you're doing too many different things and they, you know, they find you should just do one. I wouldn't say I had many issues. I consider, you know, like everybody else, you know, you always have to be ready to take a picture or always be ready to meet somebody who will be excited to see you. And I think I have that personality anyway, so I wouldn't say I've had a lot of issues regarding that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so very much for joining us today. Marcus Braveboy joining us for our Carnival conversation, Creating Your Own Lane. Thanks again.
Yeah.
All righty.
I'm excited to be on the show again.
We'll have you back soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay. Bye.
And that's how we wrap today's show. This is AM Prime. That's all for today. It was a pleasure being here. Join me again tomorrow for another show. Coming up is Talking Point with Keaton and Sean. Be sure to check us out on all our social media platforms at WESNCC. And if you need to get in touch with us, you can email us at amprimewesn@gmail.com. I'm Leah Ann Jones, and I will see you again tomorrow. Have a good day.